Love frees. This is a lesson that I learned when I was a kid, and it comes out of the Song of Solomon. It's that moment where King Solomon has to make the decision and decide who is the rightful mother to a child. Both women come in hysterical. One woman's baby had died, or the thing she wanted, the thing she nurtured, the child. But let's metaphysically make it whatever the thing is we may think we want or deserve or feel entitled to. Another person had actually carried that child in utero and raised it and breastfed it and took care of it and all of the rest until that woman stole it. And King Solomon had to decide who the person was. When both people are pointing their fingers, saying, I'm the rightful owner of a thing, there is a decision to be made. And so what he did is he said, I'm going to split the baby in half. Knowing, being one of the wisest men on earth, as the Bible tells us, that the rightful mother would never allow such a thing to happen. For those of us here on any journey, there's a whole culture, and we can debate whether it's toxic or not. Twin flames, soulmates, DMs, DFs, partners. That's what they just used to be called. 50 ways to leave your lover. My favorite way to leave a lover is fully intact. It's the way I left mine when I realized that she wasn't going to be okay with all of the pulling and the tugging. Sometimes you sacrifice a thing you love for the greater good, even if it breaks your heart. Think about that mother there having to say, I would much rather see this child that I loved and I carried and I nurtured and I raised and I cared for and I invested in. You fill in the blank for what your child is. Is it a business? Is it a relationship? Is it a health regimen? What's the thing you've invested in? What's your baby? And someone wants to destroy it. Do you find a way to forfeit or make the wisest decision to release? It is said that love does not own, it is not possessive, it frees. That's something I heard Maya Angelou say, probably on some show of Oprah's many years ago. Love frees. There are no easy answers for these love queries, these conundrums, these labyrinths we find ourselves in. Sometimes the only thing you can do is the cliche, and that is to set something free. It's not about will it come back to you. In my case specifically, I assessed surgically, pun intended, I assessed that it would be important to cut away something, but not cut the partner that I cared about in half. Now, I have a lot of names, a lot of monikers that I can ascribe to said partner, but for the sake of humanity and for the sake and brevity of this video, this talk over, voiceover, we're just going to say that it was a partner. So something and someone that I loved, I knew was not going to be able to, or wasn't willing to not be in cowardice. And I cared way more about her escaping and leaving intact than I did about winning an arbitrary battle, because I knew it was something that even before I walked away, I had already won. In that moment when King Solomon had the bailiff or whomever raise the blade to sever the child so that each could go home with a peace. The mother, the person, the investor, the business partner, the you fill in the blank for your situation. She looked at that thing she had nurtured and carried and loved, and she said, no, it's not mine. It belongs to that woman over there. And King Solomon came and took the baby dangling in the air and handed it to the mother, the one who was willing to make the greatest sacrifice of all. Sometimes we sacrifice things, and it ends like that. It's a happy ending. And sometimes that baby goes off with the other mother. And it leaves you in a place where you have to reseal your heart, cauterize an arterial bleed in order to move past the pain of that sacrifice. And you do. Because we don't get new limbs like starfish, but our heart is amazing at regenerating. And sometimes, after a long while, you look back and you realize that God was in the details even of the sacrificial separation. It's important to love yourself, and it's important to love those around you and nurture them. But the most important thing of all is to love above yourself, especially when it doesn't feel good. When I had my King Solomon moment, I went in knowing how it was going to end for me. For me. It doesn't end that way for all of us. But I didn't go in calling a bluff. I wasn't playing games. Which was not what anybody else around me was doing. There were a lot of games. I think after this year of COVID, I think after this year of immense, immeasurable loss, even those two might realize that things are not a game, that some things are forever, some things are fatal. Some things we can recover from, and some things we don't. But when you come upon that moment to make a decision about sacrificing yourself or another for a game or for love or for a cause that you've invested into, weigh it first. I did. At the end of this journey, I look back and I don't regret the decision I made. I made the decision for the highest good of all parties involved. For the disheveled mother who was histrionic and borderline personality, not being honest out of their frenzied grief at the thought of having lost something that they believed honestly was theirs when they knew it was a lie. Why? I'm a whole person. A person like that is not whole. The person who couldn't speak up in cowardice and set things straight, in this case the baby could speak, wasn't a whole person. So I want to look at this in a different perspective. For some of us, we allow people that aren't whole to codependently cling once we have done whatever ascending and evolving we need to. And that is not to say we've reached the mountaintop, because God knows, if you've watched any of these videos this year, that is simply not true. I have evolved here with you in ugly ways and in beautiful ways, but I have been vulnerable and I've been honest. And as I stood there, figuratively speaking, in that court of universal spiritual law, hermetic law, waiting for the decision to be handed down, waiting to see for once if my premonition would go askew, but it didn't. See, I knew. When you're seeking and you're praying and you're devoting your life, you are spiritually guided and protected. For me, there was a tower that was going to fall. And I cared so much about the person that I didn't want the tower that they had built. It was like the Tower of Babel, built on confusion, built on unsafe foundations, built with leaning scaffolding and cement that hadn't been properly poured or mixed, built with miscommunications and speaking different languages and subterfuge and covert narcissism and codependency and addictions and sex addictions and illegal behaviors and terrible parenting and terrible choices and multiple partners and poly everything. That tower that I watched those two build, I thought it's going to come crumbling down, crashing down on this person that I love. And even though I'd watched her be messy and assemble with glee something gleaming and shining that she could flaunt before me, I still wanted to save her. It's the empath's way. It's the kind path. A great reader on here you guys should check out. The Kind Path. But in the aftermath, as the tower did fall, and it has, and it fell down on them all, like Samson and Delilah as he stood between the pillars, shaking with his last bit of strength. I knew that it was not just time to walk away. I knew that I had to give love to that person that one last day. I was not going back. I didn't want to be back in. I didn't want a war with a mentally unstable person. This wasn't about a win. It was ultimately about love. I loved myself too much to stay, too much to argue, too much to play. And I loved her too much to watch her be torn in two so that someone else could have their way. It wasn't even her own way. She was happy. Let's not make any misamends about that. And she wanted everything that she got. But the truth is, I knew that she was lost and at the darkest part of herself. And I thought, why would I add to that? Sometimes you are not supposed to stay and help, empath. Sometimes the smartest thing that you can do is to say farewell. It's to bid adieu. And even if it hurts and you think you can't get through, I promise that the universe has 100% got you. Love frees. And when love frees, love wins. So it's not just bittersweet, because with that ending, something begins. Empath, 2021 will be the time that we dive into the new things beginning from the things that you may have sacrificed in this past year. For those of you who have taken the ride with me, I'm eternally grateful for being my quasi-therapist. After I've had a lot of therapy during the day, I came here and I created art and I had cathartic moments. and I've purged a heartbreak. And it's something that you can do if it's something that you're going through. We all have different circumstances and different levels of pain, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't come back up again and at different times that surprise you. But I'm on the other side of it in a way that you couldn't have told me I would be at the beginning of this year. I don't want to scream and I don't want to yell, and I don't even... I get it. I understand what all of this was about. I think I understand it more than I ever thought I would. I think I understand it more than even the people that were fighting so ardently did. We all played our parts. God had somewhere for me to be, and I think that's why he filled up the person that I love so much. I think that's why he filled up her heart. But it wasn't ever with me. And that was done purposely, so that I could know, so that I could learn, so that I could grow, so that I could be sitting right here, staring in the face of a greatest fear. To lose someone who you think will sojourn with you through life. Someone who has been by your side for many lifetimes. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Isn't that what Boys to Men say? I made it through, and that is why this had to happen, so that I could tell you, so can you. This wasn't about my heart breaking in two. This was about putting myself back together and becoming whole, because I had things to do. I have people to teach, and I have places to go, and I have conversations to have, and I have readings to know. I have healing to transmute. Empath, if you are the embodiment of love in your light work, in your bright work, in your shadow work, which is what this was, then a heart can break, but we do regenerate. We do come back and coalesce and become one. And then we go back into the world. And we give our best again. Not jaded. It's okay. I'm gonna not say that you didn't see a few videos that went the jaded way. But here I am at the end of the year, talking about this thing and not shedding a tear, and that's the greatest miracle of all. Love frees. By releasing something and someone that never ever wanted or valued or needed or cared to know about what would be pleasing to me. Just, it was all selfishly. After that experience, I know exactly why I'm here. And it's to help you work through some of your own love, romance, and or friendship fears. For me, I had an all-in-one. God's so funny. He said, "You're done." And so we did it in one foul swoop. Foul indeed. A great big poop. But I let it free, and now I am too. And this is not just my story. For so many listening, this is about you. Come back next time, guys, and we will continue to let love win. Even if it doesn't seem that it went your way, I'm telling you, you have no idea how it feels when you let God play. They had their chance. Now God gets his turn. I can't wait to see what's next. And I want you to be optimistic with me, guys. Something else soon comes. It's a guarantee. Come back and join me next time, and we will continue to evolve together.